You're on mute.
I see so. Welcome back after the long weekend. Welcome everyone to this postgraduate support group meeting. I'm Lenny Liebenberg, and I'm very happy to be hosting this particular session as part of the UKZN Postgraduate Academy. Today's discussion is the first in a series about navigating the professional supervision relationship. Today we'll kick off with the student-supervisor relationship, and in the next couple of weeks we'll be tackling concepts like managing criticism, emotional intelligence, effective communication, managing the imposter syndrome, academic bullying, time management, all things that relate to how well you manage with your supervisor during your academic period. Now, these sessions are championed by the wonderfully informative and supportive CHS Student Support Services team. And today we have the team online with Bulganithi Thava taking the lead and presenting here. And we also have a special guest today, an industrial psychologist and career development specialist, Karuna Mahadev. And I'll leave them to introduce themselves during the session. Let me just get through the ground rules of the meetings. As always, welcome to new participants, new community members. This is a very informal session, so please feel free to place any comments, any questions in the chat box. Raise your hand if you'd like to say anything, if you'd like to express yourself. Use the reaction icons, the emoticons. Always in a constructive manner. We in keeping with this informal and supportive nature of these meetings. Okay, with that, I'll hand over to Willie and the SSS team. Welcome very much. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Lenine. I'm just going to share my screen.
Sure.
Okay, so is that clear? Great. So greetings, students, and welcome to the session today on navigating the professional supervision relationship. I'm Willie Deva. I'm a student counselor in the College of Health Science, and I think my colleague is with me today, Nandi. I'm not sure if the others have made it on board, but it's wonderful to be with you again, and welcome to the first session in a series of many on navigating this professional supervision relationship. Lenine has already shared that we have several topics between now and the 13th of June, and she shared with you some of the topics that will be addressed in terms of navigating this professional relationship. Okay, so today's session will lay a basic foundation to navigating the professional supervision relationship. And it's going to be broken up into 3 parts. I will take you through a brief introduction into the student-supervisor relationship. I'll share with you student support services role and some of the experiences of students from a previous year. This will be followed by Lenine taking us through the MOU that you and your supervisor will sign or has signed, focusing on how to empower yourself through this MOU. And then we will be joined by Karuna, who's an intern industrial psychologist, who will share with us how to optimize this relationship, appropriate communication, expectations of a student, with the aim of preventing a breakdown in the relationship. So the supervision of postgraduate students at university is one of the core responsibilities of academics and is considered a measure of academic output. Supervision not only transfers research and related skills, but is also an intensive and interconnected form of educator-student engagement. A successful relationship between the student and the supervisor is essential for successful postgraduate study. The supervisor serves as a primary source of guidance in all processes from proposal preparation to research design, ethics approval, research activities, and even access to resources. It must be borne in mind, however, that a perfect match between a supervisor and a research student is seldom achieved. For this relationship to succeed, communication, negotiation, and compromise are required. And for such interaction to be sustained over the study period, an appropriate degree of trust and mutual respect is absolutely essential. So the supervisor's role. A supervisor should assist in integrating the student into the academic and social life of the department, provide a collaborative research environment, and encourage open communication. Ensure that meetings with the co-supervisor and or departmental advisory committees operate in a constructive manner. Given that you as a student needs to devote significant and productive time towards degree completion, stay abreast of requirements for degree completion through active and regular discussions with your supervisor. Communicate your career goals and concerns that are related to academic progress clearly, and initiate communication with the supervisor. So some theory, according to Louis Tay, a professor in industrial organizational psychology, there are 7 qualities for highly effective students, starting with the first being prompt and clear communication, where he says that successful students work hard at responding promptly to emails and other correspondence. During meetings, they have a clear agenda laid out for discussion. This reduces the chances of misunderstanding and helps move the projects and the ideas forward. Secondly, he talks about a learning mindset and says that successful students are constantly reading, learning, and willing to challenge their own understanding and knowledge. They are not afraid of failure because it is an opportunity to learn. As a result of this mindset, there is less performance anxiety. It also reduces the experience of imposter syndrome, as they care less about what others think about their limitations. Instead, these are viewed as opportunities to learn and grow. Thirdly, he talks on focused work. The quality of being effective refers to the willingness to work long and hard on the tasks at hand. Successful students are hyper-focused when they work, and they achieve this by actively removing distractions during work hours. In doing so, they achieve more in less time. Fourthly, is proactive, where successful students do not sit around waiting to be told what to do or to be spoon-fed. They take charge of their own learning, projects, and career. When they need help or advice, they reach out. When facing problems, they look for solutions. This often entails discussing obstacles with others, conducting internet searches, reviewing literature, and finding out what they don't know. They think through likely challenges in their project and seek to prepare for these challenges and preempt them. In doing so, they develop leadership, independence, and solid personal insights. Fifth, he talks about humble-minded. The goal of top graduate programs is to train graduate students to become world-class experts in the field of knowledge. Often this can lead to some level of arrogance or even pride. However, outstanding graduate students tamp down their pride in order to be better listeners and collaborators. They work on receiving and incorporating feedback in their work. They are open to deeply understanding other perspectives in other disciplines that may even run counter to their own. This habit of mind and heart makes their work truly amazing. Sixth, he speaks of pro-social orientation. The best students care deeply for the welfare of others around them and the program that they are in. They take time to meet and support fellow students. Their proactive orientation leads others to trust and value them deeply. And often this opens up many different doors. And lastly, talks of not consumed by work. While graduate school and academia can be all consuming, Successful graduate students have developed good work-life routines to ensure that they are prioritizing their sleep, rest, exercise, and healthy relationships. They are able to say no to work opportunities in order to stay well-balanced. In doing so, they maintain a growing passion for the work they do and are less likely to experience burnout. So following that bit of theory, I am privileged to share, to have this opportunity to share with you some of the experiences of our students that we've seen before you. At a session addressing this very topic in October of 2022, students share their journey, and these pointers are seen as critical to assist and guide you as you navigate this journey. So I'm going to take you through the experiences of 4 students and share some of their insights. And student 1 says, set your due dates before the due dates. If anything comes up, you are well within the time frame. Know what's on your supervisor's plate and capitalize on this. If they are not swamped, you can load them. Your supervisor is a human being carrying all sorts of challenges, his own family and other responsibilities. So get involved in what your supervisor is involved in. This prepares you for your own stages. For example, grant application. So work with your supervisor. You pick up and you learn. Career shadow. Get to know what your supervisor does outside of your project. Get to know your mentor as a person. We often see them as being able to do everything. Learn how they work, what they prefer and not, so you deliver the way they best receive. Each supervisor is unique and values different things. Student 2 speaks of, this is a relationship between 2 equals. Supervisor may be superior because of qualifications. You need to form a bond, like a marriage, academic and personal. The trick is to find the right ratio. Supervisors form a part of your life. Be honest with your supervisor. Let your supervisor know what you can and can't, what you understand and don't. Need to manage this relationship. Can meet even in a non-academic space because this lends to sharing more. Manage time constraints and conflicts. Could be in the employment area or other roles that you both have. You need to find a balance with your supervisor and know that the supervisor has many students. Make sure the relationship is a steady one. Both students and supervisor have many roles. And student number 3 shares with us that communication is key. Learn your supervisor's personality and vice versa. Learn what makes them tick or not. Let your supervisor know your strengths and weaknesses in terms of the program and commit to putting in your best. Manage expectations. Let the supervisor know where you stand and how you are coping. And finally, student number 4 says, I started off passively with my supervisor, and this cost me a lot of time and tears. I realized that I had to take charge of this degree. I realized that I got to understand my supervisor and establish a relationship. Expectations work both ways. I realized that this is my degree. I needed to own it. I needed to look into myself, know myself, set realistic goals and deadlines. Communication was key. When time lapsed, I didn't receive feedback. I became anxious until I reached out. Need to be proactive. Show where you struggle. Ask for help. Don't waste time. Don't allow a break in communication. This becomes a monster. So that was the perspective of 4 of our students last year. And during that session, we had the team present, and Postgrad Academy team shared some of the following tips, which I thought would be lovely to share with you. This is simply a relationship between 2 people, none inferior or superior. Rather, it's based on one wanting to grow and achieve, and one who can help make that possible. Just that they have different experiences throughout life. All normal aspects of managing relationships are relevant here, such as courtesy and respect. Need to move beyond fear. See your supervisor as a normal human being, that's just ahead in their career. Supervisors are very busy, never a spare moment. Don't assume that a supervisor is not there for you. Log your task and they will get back to you. Supervisors are here to help you. Do not be passive. Take control and ensure that you are on the priority list. The relationship will change throughout the journey as the needs change. Keep communication open. Responsibility to you and accountability for the work are critical to supervisors. The MOU will guide the relationship and the process. And of course, there are official steps of escalation to consider if one becomes dissatisfied with the situation. So this brings me to my last bit in terms of what is our role in terms of student support services in your journey. And in student support services, we are aware that students frequently experience anxiety, stress, etc., due to academic, emotional health, or financial concerns. Most students cope adequately with these academic demands, but some of them become overwhelmed. And without this constructive help, students' emotional well-being and academic performance may be threatened. And this is where we come in to help our students regain the emotional balance that is so necessary to cope with the demands of university life. How do we do this? How do we provide the support? We get to know you. We prioritize the personal needs of our students. We create an enabling environment, provide out-of-lecture room student development programs, support the holistic development of students, and offer a positive university experience. Our experience with working with students has revealed that the aspects that you see on the slide in front of you are common challenges that students experience. Of recent, mental health challenges have escalated, and we are seeing many students in terms of mental health related issues. Experiences of our postgrad students include, but are not limited to, accessing support services during the experiences of our postgrad students also extend to that as what I've showed you in the previous slide. And this includes accessing of support services during the day, trauma experiences within the lab, crime and threat, bullying in the workplace, the whole transition, moving away from home, or having to adjust again, to returning to studying after a long time. Workplace and study demands, finding a balance between familiar academic and workplace, financial constraints, as well as mental vitality and wellness, as well as completing the research components, whether it's situational or circumstantial challenges. We've picked up these unique challenges for our postgrad students. The student counselor is a trained, registered professional who will help students navigate their challenges whilst remaining in control of the journey at university. Our services are free, professional, and confidential, and they cover a range of support from individual to group, from personal to career to skills development. We work within a multidisciplinary approach across several strategies of support to enhance student learning and success. So while the support is in place, you remain central to your success. Your postgrad journey comprises 7 different experiences, challenges, and highlights. Ensure that your goals are achieved. Know what is expected of you and how to successfully cope with the demands. Display the appropriate attitude, behavior, and work ethic. Most important, you need to be physically and mentally healthy to remain successful. Prioritize your wellness. You are welcome to schedule an appointment with us at one of our campuses. We have counselors at Medical School, Howard, and Westport campus. We also have counselors at our decentralized training platform sites. You may contact us via the email that's in front of you, chs.sss@ukzn.ac.za, or on the toll-free line 080-080-0017. And we'll share all these numbers with you. So that was a bit of my presentation, and I hand over to our next presenter, Lenine.
Thank you, Willie. That was very, very informative. I'm going to share my screen now. How do I do that? Okay, just give me a second. Right. Go. Good. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes. Fantastic. You know, as I was listening to you, Willie, I remember that session last year, the Managing Your Supervisor session, and it was such an inspirational session that we actually still get messages. Oh, let me stop my video. I see I'm having issues there. We still get emails about the content, students speaking about their experiences, and happy that that had happened, you know, that session, to let them know that they are not alone. So if you would like to have a look at that session, it is still on the UKZN YouTube site as well. So I'm going to be speaking about the MOU, an incredibly important document. But just before I do that, I thought I'd give us an opportunity to just reflect on what a good student-supervisor relationship is. So have a think about it. You can pop your comments in the chat box. In the interim, while you're thinking, I'll tell you what I think is the basis of a good student-supervisor relationship. It's things like mutual respect, courtesy, punctuality, trust, dedication, boundaries, encouragement, fairness, being able to communicate, being approachable. Wow, I can say a lot about these things. I've been a student, I've been a supervisor, and I think I've got a bit of experience in what should be the basis of this sort of relationship. You're welcome to add your comment within the chat box as well to this community. And next is a question about, have you and your supervisor actually discussed and agreed to the content of an MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding? I'm assuming that everybody knows that, because as a student at a university, you are required, you cannot register without having signed an MOU. But the question here is specifically regarding having discussed it with your supervisor. Please show by raised hands or in your in the chat box whether you and your supervisor actually discuss the document. Well, how many of us have just signed it, not really going through it or having that discussion, and submitted it for registration purposes? I'm very curious about that number. You're welcome to put that in the chat box as well. So this Memorandum of Understanding is a document that is drafted to ensure that the student-supervised relationship is conducive to successful studies. And this document, in my opinion, should be the result of a discussion, a good discussion between the two of you in the early stages of your relationship. And the point of this is to give the student and the supervisor an opportunity to develop this productive working relationship. And you do this by clarifying some issues that can cause problems within the relationship. So in the beginning, this MOU is used to set out the expectations that each of you have for each other, of each other. It is there to clarify any sort of misunderstandings that you or your supervisor might have about something, whether it's about the project itself or whether it's about your responsibilities or their responsibilities, or any sort of misaligned expectations. To me, it's an outline of what you consider as respectful behavior within the relationship. It's something that ensures your power within the relationship as well. So this is the general draft of the MOU that we have. It starts off with a description of who you are, where are you within the university, who are your supervisors, what's your topic. It ends off with you signing, your supervisor and co-supervisor signing, and then the academic leader of research signing this as well. And the content of this MOU details student responsibilities, supervisor responsibilities, and the procedures for conflict resolution. I hope that everybody has seen and signed one of these before. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the MOU for my specific school. If I remember correctly, this was drafted by Prof. Moses Chimbari a couple of years back, and this serves as a guide. This is the minimum responsibilities for both student and supervisor within that school. And I said it serves as a guideline because this is the minimum, but it can be expanded based on your discussions, the discussions that you and your supervisor have, because in my opinion, there are many other things that need to be covered within this bare minimum for more clarity within your relationship. So what I like to do, and I'm a little OC about this, my students and I, we will sit down and read it line by line and discuss everything. But what do you mean? What does this mean? So, for example, number one, students should identify a research topic acceptable. That's fine, that's a normal thing. Number two, student must show commitment to the degree program and undertake to produce a full proposal within 3 months of registering. So we'll sit for a couple of minutes questioning, what does it mean to show commitment? How do you measure that? How do we prove this? And we'll agree on how that should look. So if you have not actually had this discussion with your supervisor about what is expected of you, both of you, I'd highly recommend that you do, to prevent any issues that come across during your journey. So I'm just going to go through some of most of these just to have us all on the same page about the MOUs for students and supervisors. Students must produce written work that is not just a raw draft for comments by the supervisor. The student would need to show commitment to the program. Number four, the student should have regular meetings with the supervisor and have the courage to request such meetings. Now, this is another example of this being a little bit vague, and I think this is definitely where lots of issues pop up between students and supervisors. I think it's useful to agree to the purpose of meetings and the frequency of meetings and for records to be kept. So recording these supervisory meetings, I think it helps the student and the supervisory team keep track of actions and decisions. And I think it's useful, in my experience, for students to record and provide the supervisor with written minutes, as is in point 4. And within these, I think it's useful to include the date and purpose of the meeting, any problems that were identified, and action points. This protects you. This protects the supervisor as well. Number 5, student must demonstrate the highest level of scientific honesty at all stages of the degree program. You're saying that you're not going to plagiarize, for example. Number 6, students should follow the advice provided by the supervisor. And if they choose not to, they should discuss the matter with the supervisor immediately. Discussing advice is your right. You do not need to say yes to everything. If you have an opinion about how something could be done in a different way, voice it. You do have power within this relationship. Number 7, student must always inform the supervisor of the whereabouts. So for me as a supervisor, I'm pretty lenient. I just need to know what I need to tell somebody if I cannot see you at your desk, or I know where you are. I'm in the lab, I'm working from home, I'm doing this, just to make sure that if anything happens, I know that I can contact you. The student must agree to complete studies within 2 years. This is for masters. For PhD, it's different. And there's some flexibility in there as well. The student should allow the supervisor to publish their work. If they do not do so or show interest after 1 year, which is also variable, this is also part of the discussions that you and your supervisor would need to have. The supervisor, of course, also has responsibilities, and these are listed here. Also, I think that these can be expanded. Supervisor must support students at all stages of the degree program. This includes the settling down procedures, the proposal writing, ethical applications, data collection, data analysis, write-up of the thesis, manuscripts, etc. The supervisor should put the interests of the students first. That is a big point for discussion between you and your supervisor. What does that mean? Number 3. Supervisor must have a good knowledge of the research area of the student. That is absolutely true. For PhD students, I think that the aim is for you to surpass your supervisor in some instances, that you should be an expert on a particular topic. Number 4, supervisor must always be available to the student for discussion and should have regular meetings with the student. If the supervisor must be away for an extended period, they should identify a co-supervisor to assist the students during that period. This is to ensure that the student is still supported. Supervisor must read work submitted by the student for comments and give feedback timelessly. Timelessly is also a little bit vague. See, this is where that discussion between you and your supervisor at the signing of the MOU is important. 6, constructive criticism. That's their responsibility. Sufficient interest in the work of the student. Instances of co-supervision, supervisors, okay, please, Mama and Daddy mustn't fight in front of the student, speak with a united voice. Number 9, supervisor, where funds permit, should facilitate arrangements for students to present, to disseminate their data. Who didn't know that? Number 10, supervisor must provide an annual progress report. 11, supervisor must protect the work of the student by not prematurely publishing or assigning it to somebody else. And co-authorship should be clarified. I think that a couple of other things, if I didn't mention it now, should be discussed at the point of you and your supervisor sitting down and meeting to discuss your MOU, just to avoid any issues down the line. And many things that pop up regard issues regarding not being able to get hold of each other, not getting feedback in time, how and when we address each other. If those issues are, ironed out from the get-go, when both parties discuss how they expect to relate to each other, I think that having that clarity can really help optimize the relationship. So these are things of when are we going to meet, in which format are we going to be meeting in, let's discuss our timelines and when progress can be reported. When would you like me to submit something to you? In which format would the feedback be given? What is the time span in between that? What sorts of output are you expecting? Papers, by when? Conference presentations, by when? If we are going to be developing something, who owns this? This is regarding the IP. Funding, where's the funding coming from? What is your responsibility? What is my responsibility when it comes to the funding? What if I want to, when I do work at the university, how is that going to be accommodated? That needs to go in the MOU. The general ground rules for how you are going to interact, and also how disputes will be resolved. So the MOU that I've just read, the standard one for my school, says that conflict resolution, generally it does come up, And we should first try to resolve it among us, between the parties involved, student and supervisor. If this cannot be resolved, then we approach the academic leader of research or dean and head of school. And then arbitration will happen, either by the dean and head of school or another senior academic who's not involved in the conflict, and they will arbitrate, and the arbitrator's decision is final and cannot be appealed. So to me, this is the part that is least flexible. The others are up for discussion, and you need to be able to make sure that you get your points, what you need across within that MOU, as would your supervisor, to protect both of you within the relationship and make sure that you get the most out of it. So let me stop there. I know I've spoken a lot, and we'll move on to Karuna. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Prof. Welcome, students. I'm just changing to the screen a little. I think, do I need permission? No. All right.
There we go.
Thank you. So, students, welcome, and thank you all for being here. It's been really, really informative listening to my colleagues speak on the subject of supervision and the relationship you have. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So welcome to the session. And what's going to happen is that the session is going to reflect just a little on how to manage your time effectively, how to structure your meetings and processes with your supervisors and your peers, and how to improve your relationship with supervisors and peers. So one may think, we've been through this, what's the big deal? The big deal is that improving our relationships or interpersonal skills is an ongoing and lifelong procedure. So it doesn't just stop. We need to constantly improve to be employable, if nothing else. So I ask you, please unmute yourself and feel free. What is your goal with this profession? Students, I invite you, just unmute and feel free to say whatever's on your mind. What is your ultimate goal with the profession that you're in right now? I can't see you, so I can't name you.
Karuna, I'm a student at heart.
Yeah, sure.
I want to leave a legacy of impact. I want to change this world. I also want to survive.
Wonderful. Really? Can you tell us more?
I could for an hour.
So you want to leave a legacy and you want to change? You want to change the world? Did I hear correctly?
The world. I would love to be remembered as somebody who improved women's reproductive rights through my research for the better.
Amen. Can we get an amen to that? Students, are we with this presentation today? Prof, thank you. That was, I felt that. I really did. Hi.
Yes, thank you. So my goal as an academia is to contribute towards developing sound health systems, which will be transforming the national health system and also making significant contribution at international level as a health system strategist. Yeah, that's essentially my goal. So I'll be contributing through evidence-based policies and practices in changing health systems, both at local and international level.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wow, that's a lot and sounds complicated. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we've got Prof and Our gentleman, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, sir.
I'm David.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having shared that. And we've seen two of their goals, which are pretty powerful. And I'm guessing that somewhere in the midst of all of that goal is that you as a student are actually planning on incorporating this into your goal, which is financial reward. Perhaps you want to move overseas. I heard David saying local and internationally. And maybe it's to be a superhero, like Prof just said she wants to change the world. But whatever it is, I would hope that at the crux of that is that you want to be the best at what you can do. So do we agree to that? You want to be the best. You just don't want to be good, or you don't want to be better than someone else. And I'm hoping that today you want to be the best. You make a decision to be the best at what you do. Do you agree?
Yes, sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So the question I ask of you next is, what do we need to do? What needs to happen so that we may become the best at what we do? And, you know, no amount of goal setting or planning there can't be a scattered approach to it. There really is a need for proper goal setting and planning and prioritizing and scheduling and organizing. And you may think that, you know what, we did this in high school and it's overrated. But if we don't have these things in place, we actually don't know what we're chasing. So the first thing to do, obviously, would be to set a goal. And then would be the planning and prioritizing. It doesn't need to map out 10 years, but short goals, if you might. And what I've done in your handouts is provided a few things to get you started. You've got your goal setting, you've got your planning, prioritizing. Can anybody in the group right now, just off the cuff, think about something that you're currently doing that you know you don't need to be doing immediately, but are doing it anyway, and what needs to be done immediately? Can anybody just list an example of something to do, something to defer, perhaps delegate, or just delete it off of your plate? Any ideas? Who'd like to share something? Students, are you there? Someone is saying something.
So Elliot is clapping hands. So I'm just wondering what that would mean. So I guess it's always hard to decide what we should be doing and remove what we shouldn't be doing. But here somebody says cut off WhatsApp time.
Ooh, you say cut off. Elliot, Elliot, you've raised a hand. Please feel free to chat.
I think what we need to know as students is that we've got something that we call attention. And attention is psychological energy.
Yes.
And it needs to be focused on something very important. In this case, it is important to focus on your work, your schedule, and things like, you know, when you work, you must work in such a way that you are sure that your attention is being utilized in that something which is very important, because it is so limited. If you start by doing something else, for example, if you start by watching a movie before you go and open your books, the attention will be completely used. By the time you open your books, you won't be able to concentrate You know, I think a movie is something that you can watch after you have as a reward after working very hard. I think that is something very important that we also need to tell our kids that they other things, do them as a reward after having worked very hard, with your goal in mind. And what is important is that you also need to sort of like observe your own study behavior. And then and you must have things that will make you sit down and study, because sometimes it becomes not easy just to sit down and study. Things like, maybe your friends, your relatives know about what you are doing. And you must also think about the day when, like the graduation day, when you have succeeded and people are happy. All those things need to motivate you. So I think because of the fact that attention is so limited, we need to know, and we need to know that if we start by doing other things before we focus on our books, on our reading, so it will be useless if we start by doing other things and then do your studies later, because you will be like a teddy bear, just reading but not actually consuming whatever you are reading or thinking or focusing. You won't have that energy. It's like when you, after resting, after sleeping, when you wake up, maybe during midnight, you can feel that you are ready to absorb whatever, and you read critically. So those things are things that one must be aware of. That is what I can say.
Elliot, thank you for those very good tips. Can we give Elliot a round of applause, guys? I think that was very informative. Thank you. So
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, and the next part of that, obviously, is scheduling, like Elliot was saying, and organizing yourself. Now, I have shared these handouts for you. You might find them useful in terms of what your priorities are versus what needs to be reprioritized, perhaps. We're not asking you to stop living, but rather, your academic journey is a short one to getting you to part of your goal, which is earning an income or securing work. So a humble request from us is that you put your fun a little lower down the scale, and maybe the academics a little higher. So it's not too much to ask for, I hope. Right, we've Prof has spoken about your grievance processes from your memorandum of understanding, and this slide pretty much deals with the same thing. Your academic leader is tasked with managing over your supervisor, and then your supervisor signs into a contract with you. And there's a form which needs to be emailed just for record keeping purposes. Should there be some kind of disagreement, students are invited to consult their contract to look at how we've deviated from what needs to occur. And yes, use it as your benchmark. And should the issue not be resolved effectively with your supervisor, you can then approach your academic leader to resolve the issue. And we hope always that it doesn't get to the level of arbitration, and that it can be resolved sooner rather than later. Right, a question for the group as well. So you wish to set up a meeting with your supervisor at the hospital or any environment that you're working in. Can you please mention a few steps that would allow you to maintain your professionalism? Remember, in a working environment, in a professional environment, we don't enjoy informality that much. They're not our best friends. We're there to earn an income. So how would you maintain professionalism in setting up an appointment with your supervisor? Any thoughts, guys? I'm just having a look at the messages while you think.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Yvonne. I'm a master's student. I think probably the most important thing would be to, well, in my case, I would email my supervisor in a very timeless manner. So maybe not the day before, asking for a meeting on the following day.
Good. So okay, so you would space it out a little, give them a time to turn around on that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, definitely. Because I don't think it would be very constructive to, ask your supervisor the day before, hey, could we please schedule a meeting for so and so time, because you wouldn't be considering their priorities and their schedule.
Thank you. Yes, no, you're absolutely right. Well, if you don't, while you're here, what would you include in the email?
I think I'd say I'd include the details of the email, why I am wanting to meet up with them. Maybe if there's a specific, maybe if I'm working on my writing, or if I need help with maybe a lab protocol that I'm working on. I think that would be the most important one. And then you'd be able to, maybe they would know on their side, like, okay, she needs to discuss her entire protocol. Maybe I should give her an hour for this meeting. It also gives them a bit of clarity as well.
Brilliant. Yes, some planning time for them as well. Absolutely correct. Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So in asking the question, yes, there's a few tips which you've covered by indicating or checking first with the availability of your supervisor, formatting your email correctly, respectfully, and indicating following the reason for your email, request where the meeting is taking place, either offline or in person, and make sure that your email informs the supervisor about the nature of your meeting by highlighting the reasons why the meeting is taking place. And as you mentioned, that it gives them time to plan as well. Remember, students, that, excuse me, succinct is what we're aiming for. You're aiming for clear indication as to what your requirements are and what you want. And this needs to be communicated to the supervisor. And it would help also if don't throw random statements at them. Break it down, unpack what it is that you are curious to know about. It also gives you clarity in working out your thoughts. So Mrs. Stavo also covered the 7 characteristics of what makes a successful postgraduate student. And there was one of the pointers there that said, use every opportunity as an opportunity for growth and clarity. And I don't think that the supervisor actually assumes a role of wanting to berate or belittle, but really they are committed to seeing and ensuring that your success is guaranteed by the end of this process. So Prof also said, understand what's being said, ask for clarity, follow up, summarize what you've done. In other words, minuting the meeting, because this is essential to them remembering what's being said. And you can also call it up and say, look, on the 7th of March, Professor, you discussed this with me, and have a paper trail behind you. What do you feel right now is the role of your supervisor? And can you list a reason why they're important to you? Anyone? Any ideas? How do you experience your supervisor right now? Feel free to chat. It doesn't need to be, it can be whatever it is. So whatever's on your mind.
Yes, if I may.
Please.
I'm John.
Thank you, John.
I think The supervisor is very important. They play an important role, especially in the guidance on how to go about your research, of course. And also, more often than not, you know, there's some time you think you got it well, but when you have a discussion with your supervisor, they'll always guide you and open up some issue that you might have overlooked. So I think most of their comments, they are really valuable, and we appreciate that. And I think without them, then you will swim on the deep end of the ocean, because they try to guide you and keep you on the lane. I can say that briefly.
Thank you, John, because that was such a nice compliment to supervisors. So thank you for saying that. And you were right. You were absolutely right. We just worded differently. You know, they ensure that you have the appropriate skills, depending on the nature of the involvement, their patients or your customers have a good quality of service delivery, and they ensure as well your career growth. So you summarized it very nicely, John. Thank you. I think we've covered this slide. Okay, so you have a minute to commit this to memory. So this is your challenge. They are basic steps to build rapport with your supervisor and as well with your peers and people in general. And this could apply to people that you would meet at on the taxi, a public transport, even at the mall. So there are basic ways to build rapport with people. And there are 5 of them. So you have a minute, just a minute, to commit this to memory. And without looking at the clock, you're going to just learn it off. And your minute starts now. So you've had a minute to commit something to memory, right? That wasn't so hard, was it? I hope not. Students, when we say that there are basic steps to build rapport, and you've committed this to memory or read over it and it made sense to you, what does it actually translate to in terms of our behavior? So the basics of good communication are to be culturally appropriate, to mind your body language, to listen carefully and attentively, to wait for your supervisor or your peers or your friends to stop to finish what they're saying, to ask questions that are relevant to what is being said. And very often read the room. We're not overstaying our welcome, especially if our peers, our supervisors are too busy. In finding common ground with people, and in order to build rapport with them, you would ask questions that are not too personal, but also about the academic journey. You'll be genuine in showing interest and ask related questions. Ask about hobbies if you feel comfortable enough to, or culture. What are their cultural traditions? What practices do they have? Because you're finding common ground. Create shared experiences, attend networking, maybe events that the university might host, where you get to meet each other beyond the office. empathy. Empathy is very, very important, not only in terms of building rapport with your supervisor, but in becoming a successful adult in the working environment, and one who's contributing. You have to have empathy. It's one of the #1 soft skills that is needed by industry today. And if you could mirror or match mannerisms of speech, if your supervisors, if your peers are speaking a very academic language, adjust your speech to match as well. So these are just little tips in ways that you can build rapport with people. Of course, you don't need to be an academic all the time. If you're in an environment where there's less academic jargon, you would read the room and adjust appropriately. These are just little ways in which you can build rapport with everyone, not only your supervisors. I've run out of time, and I'm on the last slide as well. But I have a little task for you, which needed 2 volunteers. Do we have any volunteers? Anyone wants to volunteer today? 2 volunteers, show of hands, unmute. Are we still there?
Do you need a supervisor and a student? I'm
I
happy
need
to
a
be a happy
supervisor.
supervisor.
I need a happy supervisor. Prof, are you ready to be a happy supervisor?
I'm a happy supervisor today then.
Wonderful. Can we have a grumpy student? John, do you want to be my grumpy student?
Okay, I'll try that.
Yes, let's go for it. So, John, how are you going to navigate being in the office with Prof? And Prof is really, really bouncing off walls. She's really happy today. And you're not so happy and you're in a bad mood. So please let the conversation ensue. Prof, there's a knock at the door. And John walks in.
Hello, John. How are you doing? It's so nice to see you. What brings you here today?
Hello, Prof. I've got some issues that I would like to address with you.
Oh, that sounds so serious. How can I help you?
Yes, indeed, Prof. It's serious. I've been trying to do some literature review following the comment that you had given me earlier on to improve my literature review, but I find it so difficult, you know, and I think I need more input from you.
Well, John, being the happy supervisor I am absolutely overjoyed to help you with this. Let's discuss what is the problem that you are facing right now. Let's work through each of those points, step by step. Do you have time?
As a grumpy student now, say, you see, Prof, I've tried my level-based and following your comments, previous comments. And every time I submit my document to you, you keep on telling me that it's not enough. I should go back and search more. So I think I'm exhausted now.
Oh, so I'm the reason you're grumpy, John?
Yes.
Okay. Karuna, I know how I would handle this, but
Okay.
maybe not in this forum.
Yeah, I know for sure. Look, thank you so much. Thank you for playing the part of that. But John, usually, and students as well, there are days when one party is not in the best of spaces, and the other would be in a better space. I mean, this happens in life. This happens everywhere. But the question is now, do you, and I leave you with this in parting, do we transfer what we are going through onto other people, especially those that we're interacting with? And the question is, how do we as humans display that we're okay even though we are not? And you know, we have a myriad of things going on in the background. There's family issues, our friends are not well, something is going on. How do you actually wear the cap of somebody who's functional in your environment? And I think that is what these sessions are intended to build inside of you: resilience and the ability to wear different caps when you're at the working environment, or when you are in this arena where you need to give off your best and sometimes the emotions don't play along with. And I know that the sessions that follow these, the whole series of sessions, will actually start to build on your resilience so that you can better cope with these things. And I hope that, having said that, this concludes my presentation. But yes, the floor is open for any questions or any kind of feedback that you might have. Thank you, John and Prof.
Thank you, Karuna. Thank you. And
Thank
Willie,
you.
all this
you.
information. I found it very, very useful as a supervisor and one who will be sharing this with the students. Let's open the floor for any questions. I do know that we have run over a little bit, but the content is so informative. And if there are any burning questions, please feel free to raise your hand or pop a question in the chat box. You have some experts on a panel over here who are happy to address any questions.
Yes, if I may.
Sure, go ahead, John.
Okay, I know we touched it a bit, but yeah, the biggest struggle that I'm having now, is to balance work with the study. Some of these work, they're so demanding mentally throughout the day. And the only time you have is maybe the left of the evening and night. Exhausted as you are, I find it so difficult. I'm still trying to see if one has a trick on how can I go about this. I'll appreciate it. Thank you.
Could I direct that question to Willie? I know the SSS team has hosted a session on wellness and the work-life balance as well. And it was very informative. Many personal lessons. Well, for me, I took many of those lessons. So I defer to Willie on this one.
Yeah, I think that's one of the greatest challenges of postgraduate students, juggling all the multiple roles that they find themselves in. And like I said earlier, each role demanding 100% of your time, your effort, your dedication, etc. So certainly our team at SSS has many strategies in place to help support you through these challenges. I know we probably will host a session at some point on the work-life balance, but students are welcome to actually make an appointment with one of the counselors, and we'd be able to look at, where you are in your personal journey and assist you in sort of developing some kind of strategy to develop more time towards your study program. Very often we find that we do sit with students, individually and help them map a way forward. So we're willing to also do that. Because remember what I said, your wellness is absolutely critical if you are to succeed in this journey. I hope that helps.
Thank you. I'll touch base with you individually and then see how far we can go.
Yes, John. I left the details on the chat space. You're welcome to.
And
Super.
you're also welcome to check out the UKZN YouTube website as well. Our previous sessions on work-life balance and wellness and the wellness continuum are still available, and we still receive comments about them. Very, very informative. I know we were really over time. If there are any other questions, you're welcome to email any of us, and we're happy to take it forward. But until then, well, we have next week, the second session within this block. The Student Support Services team will be hosting a session titled Confidence, Competence, and Managing Criticism by Developing Self-Efficacy. We're looking forward to that one. We'll see you next week, Tuesday, for our next session. Thank you for participating, everybody. Thanks, Willie. Thanks, Karuna. And hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.